Joining us today is the founder of Catdi Printing, a Houston-based print and marketing firm that blends old-school craftsmanship with modern automation. With over 15 years of experience helping small businesses look their best, whether through direct mail, design, or digital strategy. And he's now passionate about leveraging AI and automation to transform the printing industry. He's part print broker, part technologist, and always an entrepreneur at heart. So, guys, help me welcoming Carlos deSantos. Carlos, welcome to the show.
Great to be here, and thanks for the invite. And can't wait to get started and talking a little bit about print, AI, and how it's kind of changing the whole entire space. So, yeah, thanks again.
But before we do, let's talk about the name of your company. Why is it called Catdi Printing? Is there a meaning or story behind it?
It's a great question. Yeah, so that is one of the challenges we face is like exactly how do you pronounce the name? Is it Catdi, Catdi, and so it's really, it's basically an acronym for my name. And so when I started the company, I kind of looked around for ideas. And so my father many years ago had a photography business called Lads Photography, was basically an acronym for his name, which is Luis Alonso deSantos. And so I, wasn't really too inspired, I couldn't come up with something clever. So I basically was like, you know what, I'm going to use the same approach. And so just Catdi is essentially just an acronym for my name, Carlos Alonso Torralba deSantos. And so my parents are from Spain. And so like a good Spanish individual, they keep last names like people keep like luggage. So, it stuck, the domain was available. And so here we are many years later with the same name. But, hindsight's one of those things where, I should have just been like, americanprinters.com or something very simple where people can quickly pronounce. But it's a funny little backstory that, I tell people all the time. And so they're like, oh, that's what it stands for. Because, like it's such a weird name, but it's just, I guess it's become a part of our identity over the years. So it's an anecdotal story.
And I think it's an conversation. It's an icebreaker. Basically, people when you attend business networking events, people ask you, what is the story behind? What is the meaning behind? How do you call it? How do you even pronounce it? Right? I think it's a conversation starter. So you have been in business for 15 years. It's a long time.
Yeah.
What got you first into this print marketing industry?
So when my dad had the photography studio, we were looking for ways at the time to sort of like market his business, right? Like, so most art galleries, photographers want to have like these openings. And so basically it's sort of like a grand event where people come out and sort of like see the artwork. It gives an opportunity for, my father to kind of meet other people who are interested in photography and whatnot. And so, one of the earlier or first things we thought about was like, okay, let's do some, let's print a postcard, do some direct mail. Let's just, send it to a few of our friends. And so from that, we, as basically just graduated from college, he kind of dumped that on my shoulders to kind of be like, okay, well, you do it and see what you can find and, find a company and whatnot. And so from that, it started this odyssey of like looking for companies who could do both the printing and the mailing component. And even in a city the size of Houston, that was really a challenge. There was one company that can do it. And then, we had to, it would just, these companies were just not really public facing. Obviously there's printing companies all around, but to do both was really a challenge. And so for the first couple of times, we just basically printed them out from a printer and actually just put a stamp on it. When we first started, that was fine. But as the business grew and more people, were added onto this mailing list, it just became very cost prohibitive. And so from that, speaking with other art galleries and other small businesses, I realized that there was a demand for that someone that can basically take their list, take their design and combine it and just fulfill the job for them. And so that was sort of like the early days, and then as time grew, we obviously, went into other business, print collateral, business cards, brochures. And so that was just really the beginning point. And then from then, we have now expanded our, offering to large format. We do a lot of signage now. And of course, still the traditional direct mail marketing, EDDMs. And so we just continue to add more services and service different customers. So that was the original starting point.
Love that. It must not be easy to stay in business for 15 years, so I'm sure you're doing pretty well and you know what you're doing. So let's talk about today. We all know that AI has taken over marketing industry, and like ChatGPT, everyone is using it, even businesses, corporations. So how has AI changed the way printing businesses work?
Uh, that's another great question. So, I myself and Caddy were kind of late to the game when it comes to AI. It was something that was always in the background that we heard, 4 or 5 years ago, and really didn't even think like how it could work at the time. People were using it for sort of like content and whatnot, which we do. But like as a practical application, like how would that play into our business? And so as these models have sort of advanced and the technology is just like really just increased over the past couple of years, we took another look at it and realized it can do a lot. From our sense, from a design application, right? A lot of these tools now are incredibly effective, even for customers like using Canva, pre-press, having things double checked, flight out, like looking for sizes, if there's inconsistencies between pieces, color format. And again, just as most people sort of understand it, like on the customer side, like, getting information out quicker, providing quotes faster, double checking emails, a lot of different aspects are being introduced into our business. And so we sort of taken an approach that it's going to be more and more and more surrounding our business in terms of its capabilities. And just as time goes on, it's just incredible now what you can kind of do with it. Again, from every aspect, from the customer service side and to on the print side to the design side, it seems to be touching every aspect of it.
But which part of the printing process do you think AI can improve the most? Is it the art, the copyright?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's still a lot of work that needs to be done on the sort of formatting and the graphic side of it. While most people are not, so one of the issues is sort of like prompting it to create the right artwork, or sort of like making the right changes. Unless, so for the average Joe, it's quite frustrating to sort of like implement that type of AI into sort of your marketing fold. So that needs to be improvement. But we've seen with companies like Canva, again Adobe, introducing these programs where basically you just provided just a little bit of information and it can output an amazing flyer, brochure. It can incorporate tons of different aspects into it that most people haven't thought of. And so that's where we kind of got the idea of introducing sort of a online chatbot on our website, PrintPal, to really facilitate that, or bridge that. So some people really don't even have an AI account. They don't have different. There's so many different tools that it's become extreme. Like every day, there's a new sort of application. There's a new tool, and so we kind of figured like let's incorporate something that people can use on our website and they can actually talk to it. They can get ideas. They can get initial drafts. They can take their artwork and kind of like play around with it, all for free. Because sometimes people come to us, while we're a printing production design company, we're not really an advertising agency in that respect. So people come to us like, is this a great idea? Is this, the way that we need to be targeting? Is this the right coupon? And so we gladly give them our 2 cents and see, because we just from the wealth of experience that we've done, there's a simple format that people can kind of follow. But what's interesting is, if you take those ideas and throw them into a chat GPT, or a PrintPal in our case, you can really start to get multifaceted different, options and ideas that most people, haven't even thought of. That new approach is something that we're excited about. It doesn't really necessarily translate into more printing per se, but, if people come there and they kind of get an idea of like, well, I didn't think about using prints for that way, then that allows us to fulfill that for them. So that's the cool fun thing that we're kind of finding out, is that you can really play with it, get ideas, and then ultimately come up with some great ideas that assist your business. So it's definitely a game changer in that respect.
However, since we are heavily relying on, like online marketing, online interactions, digital ads, Facebook ads and all sort of ads. So why do you think print in particular isn't that? It's still there is a demand, there is a necessity for businesses to even consider.
I can't tell you how many times I've heard that like printing is dead, direct mail is dead, business cards are dead.
Mm.
People have been saying that for many years, and the fact is, people like tangible, print materials. People still print a ton of business cards. People still love to, especially when businesses go out and introduce themselves to other businesses or potential customers and whatnot. And there's nothing more effective than having a printed, brochure, pocket folder, or whatnot. If anything, it's growing. In terms of like say direct mail, um, that seems to be always on on this deathbed. But the fact is like direct mail is growing. I mean, like you can just see that unfortunately, it does have a, junk mail and whatnot. It's especially during political seasons, people are sending out a ton of political mailers. And so it's still highly effective. Why? I mean, yeah, I do think the tangibility of it, people like to touch it. They can feel it. There's so many different options now in terms of printing and like coatings, spot UV, velvet. So these are things that people like to have and use. Also, with technology, the price has come down quite a bit. So you don't have to print these massive amounts to really get cost savings. This is not really connected to AI, but sort of digital printing has come, I mean, so far that you can really print low quantities, print on demand, so to speak, cost effectively and fast. So, all these things kind of just, keep up with the times with technological advances, to make it more affordable. And as long as there's businesses, in my opinion, and people will always have a need for print, the way that it gets, produced will change in terms of like, graphic design with AI. But it's just, it's only moving faster. The one thing I say with that has changed is people are not printing these massive, like 250,000 postcards as they used to. People are more eco sensitive, I guess you can say, where they really just print what they need. If they can drive the price down printing more, as they have in the past, that was one option. But now 800 cards versus 1,000, then they're going to save 200 cards and just get what they need. So, in my opinion, obviously I'm biased, being in the printing business, but it's something that, it is still highly in demand.
We all know that in marketing, you need to grab people's attention. You need to throw a hook, right? Even
Right.
when they're scrolling, you need to stop them from scrolling. So for print, for direct mail, how do you, after helping so many businesses, with their print, with their direct mail, do you have any, what are some of the ways they are often overlooked to get attention as a hook with print today?
Yeah, it's people always tend to want to add more. They want to just shove as much as they can in a postcard or brochure and whatnot. And but on the direct mail side of it, I mean, it's just keeping it very simple, in my opinion. Have your offer, have your call to action, phone number. That's pretty much it. Obviously, if you're a local business, using like Everdoor direct mail where proximity is key. You want to emphasize like, hey, we're your neighbors. We're down the street, and having a clear offer too. Give them a reason to call. Part of the thing is like, while we're in production and we print whatever we are given, right? I mean, that's our job. It's not really there to second guess, some of our customers, because some of them are agencies, who we print on behalf of. I see some pieces that are just like way too much. You have to remember people's attention spans are, they're busy. They have a lot going on. And so, you really have to be to the point. Loading it up with all these different things that you do, it's more is always or less is more in some respects, but just keep it simple. And frequency too, just doing multiple drops is more effective than just doing one. But there's a lot of things like that that can ultimately affect the success of a campaign. data. I mean, we could go on and on and on, but targeting the right people is obviously very important.
Yep.
If you're selling super high end pools, well, you probably don't want to be doing that in an apartment complex, right? It just doesn't make sense. So thinking about who you target and how you target is obviously extremely part of it.
Can AI help with this aspect of the print services that you offer, like to be more targeted?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, you know, most people have a general idea on who they want to target. They're from their own experience, like who is the typical customer that comes in. But utilizing ChatGPT can pull sources and from data that most people don't have access to. So you can ask it like, hey, I am in a high end pool building business. I'm looking for people who would be a great fit, and then you can throw out like type in zip codes, cities, typical demographic information. You want to be somewhat not skeptical, but you basically take it with a grain of salt and see if it sort of like matches your pre-existing sort of like understanding of your client base. But just playing with it, and that's one of the reasons why we kind of incorporate it, because we can send people there to our website that again, it's sort of trained, so to speak, to kind of like not hallucinate and go off into different aspects, but kind of if people have questions, average age of people who own pools and things like that that most people may not even thought of. But the ChatGPT with its capabilities is can make you look at things differently, I guess. uh, think of new customers that you may not have expected. Getting to that point, I guess, like creating an account, paying for the plus plan, and playing with it, can be sort of like a hurdle that some people just don't want to do. They don't want to sign up, privacy issues and all that. But on our site, we don't need to know anything about you, right? So you could just talk to it, so to speak, and get ideas. And naturally, it will kind of give recommendations on services we can do, but by no means have to use us. But if we can help you, again, it's just sort of like an increasing aspect that people should be able to play around with.
Yeah. And I'm sure many small business owners, or even like freelancers, or service providers, property agents, they feel overwhelmed by tech because that's just not their forte, right? That's not that what they're good at. What is one low lift automation you think every business, every salesperson should implement?
Yeah, I mean, that is true. There are tons and thousands of different applications. It seems like there's a new one popping up every day.
Yep.
In terms of automation, you can do simple things in terms of like just emails, again, that don't take a whole lot. Google actually, I think, is offering it. And I think even Microsoft already embedded in their email sort of like services. So, I guess that's not technically automation, but it is incorporating, the AI on the forefront of things that you're working on without even your knowledge. You know, Other things, data, you can really, that involves, a little, not want to say technical skill, but just more experience playing around with it. But, throwing Excel sheets into ChatGPT and just having it look at numbers is an incredible insight that, most businesses 4 years ago, you would have to have someone who was, basically a data analytics pro to take all that information and to basically make sense of it. Whereas in ChatGPT, I can throw in like, hey, what did we do in terms of printing product, or services in the past 6 months, and it will spit out. You printed, 40% was this, and oh, okay, something, the type of business card, right? What are people ordering? That will give you an insight to what's changed. You don't know what you don't know. There's nothing that it can't do, and so it's just really having the imagination of thinking of ways to make your business more efficient and automated. That's one, again, like sort of like what the idea is with like, PrintPal. Again, people probably, a lot of them are now getting their own sort of like, because it's free. It's incredible. There's some limitations to the models and sort of like how much you can sort of generate in terms of images and whatnot, but it's a wonderful tool. I mean, like, in terms of assisting small businesses.
How about for yourself? I mean, and your own team, your company. How do you use AI or any other AI tools, ChatGPT or any other tools out there in your own internal process and automation?
I mean, so kind of just going back to what we talked about, yeah, just loading data, looking at trends, emails, customers. You can kind of program it to look at, which customer hasn't ordered in a while, how our team uses it. Definitely with posing questions, getting ideas on what people are looking for or sort of like pain points, right? And incorporating those into our website, and so people can kind of see, that we have those questions answered for them. You can, I mean, with sort of like how Google now is doing its own generative AI, it's answering questions, essentially like assisting people. I mean, we use it for our emails. A lot of us are not wordsmiths, but we want to craft an email that is, obviously logical, makes sense, and gets the point across. Not for every email, but for writing, someone regarding maybe their design or questions we may have, or explaining aspects. Is extremely important. Using even Canva and whatnot, like if it's not calibrated correctly or if it's not in the right setting, we can't use it. And so that's that I would say, like, out of all the things that like our biggest challenges is getting artwork that is print ready. While AI is amazing, it can't quite take something that isn't perfect and make it like print ready. I mean, maybe in the next couple months they can come up with something, but like, so again, I can go into details, but like, people send us artwork from Canva all the time. Canva is a wonderful application, don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
but it's not suited as it is for print. You have to kind of make small changes to it, and there's settings within Canva. I mean, you typically have to pay for those. So people send us stuff without bleed, wrong color format, it's not scaled to size. And so we have to send those back. Since we didn't design it in Canva, we can't make a small change for them. Otherwise we would, I mean, just save the headache for the customer. But, they have to go back. And so, using AI, again, we can be like, okay, this is how you change it, save them a trip to going into Google. And they usually ultimately get it right. It's a reflection of us if we print something that may not be perfect, or we know it can, be improved, and then just print it for the sake of just moving that job. They're not happy, obviously, and that's a problem, because obviously we strive to make sure everything comes out perfect. Getting that file right is a challenge.
Absolutely. I remember those days, when I was just getting frustrated with my print, that's not the same as my original design. So it's really frustrating. But of course, it can be my fault, right? Formatting, like you said, everything, the color format. But you're clearly
Right.
passionate about AI and its potential. And we all know that we are just at the very beginning, the early stage of AI and its development and evolution. So where do you think this is going, and what what are you most excited about the AI future?
Yeah, so the file sort of like rendering for print would be something that, if it can be figured out, would be amazing. Essentially, the ability to speak to an AI generative platform like ChatGPT and create exactly what you want, like verbally, like you just talk to it and it will just output what you want. I mean, it's kind of scary to think
Yes.
about that. Basically, I could just open it up. It's like, hey, I'm creating an open house, for a piece of property that I'm representing on this date. Want you to use this font. Here are the images, and go. And then essentially, it will craft it and it will output it for you, ready to go. I mean, so my graphic designers don't really love it, because it will basically mean less work for them. But in terms of accessibility for people just to create artwork that they can use for print, web, is, I think that would be something incredibly useful. Other aspects, simple things again, like quoting, getting customer information, giving them what they need when they need it, without wasting their time. Just making things more efficient. Really, at the end of the day, that's something that we really look forward to, having that ability to just really, what are they looking for, and just get, and pricing too. There's a lot of nuance within printing, on pricing, on quantity shifts. Everything is sort of like interdependent on each other. So one change here will ultimately change the price down here. And so, and while there's tons of companies that can do, that obviously, like Vistaprint and Gotprint and some of these big chains, whatnot, have got the calculators down. But, being able to really just talk to, or just type what you want and it would just give it to you. Maybe adding something else to it is like, well, okay, I got 500 postcards, but quickly get me a quote to do, X, Y, Z. That is something that we really look forward to, because direct mail too, there's a lot of moving parts. And so kind of figuring out a way to quickly, provide a quote back, is key. There's just many moving parts, and obviously postage is a part that you can't really nail down in terms of price. Giving people an idea on, what something will cost, is, pretty exciting in the sense that we don't, cause sometimes it could take hours to days to quote a project. That just seems like a very long time, especially when we have most of the inputs. But if we could run that through, an estimator of sorts, would be cool. And it had that, again, forward facing on the website, so they can kind of do that on their own. It saves us time, saves them time, and they can make a decision one way. And then while they're there, they can talk about it and get some ideas for maybe you don't want to do 2 pages in terms of a direct mailer or a letter insert or something to that effect. But it will ultimately, in every aspect, affect it. And most people don't even know that they're using it. So that's just sort of how subtle it is in sort of in most businesses.
We have a lot of business owners, entrepreneurs listening to the show. Do you have a lesson from your early days in business that is still relevant today, the lesson that you have learned, AI or not, that's still relevant, the lesson that's still relevant and still guides you today, that you can share with us?
Yeah, I mean, just, again, it's not really sexy, and it's not sort of mind-boggling, but basically just do what you say you're going to do, and maintain to what you promise to your customers, just delivering. So from the early get point, we know that things are very important to our customers, like turnaround time. If they are dependent on these materials for an event or for their marketing, we need to deliver on that. And so it's a simple recipe, really. You provide good value and you just do what you say you're going to do. You will be successful. There's other aspects too. I mean, just being honest, with your businesses, even if you may lose a job, but you're just upfront and telling them what the expectations are and sort of the challenges. While we like to think that we can do everything, we just really know our strengths, and just being, again, honest and clear, with a customer. But again, just kind of, it goes back to that simple recipe. When you say something's going to be done, you deliver on that. Now, there's some things that sometimes things happen, unfortunately. You always have sort of an option, hey, we can't get you your 2,000, but we can just quickly do 1,000 and then work with them wherever we can. But that's something that guides us today, that, just making sure that we deliver on our customers, on their needs, and making sure that they can fulfill their aspect of their business, and having us as their partner is an important thing that we strive for every day.
I love the lesson. Thanks for sharing. I think it's something that's often overlooked, deliver, you have to deliver what you promise. So yeah, I mean, a lot of, especially with marketing and these days, people just make big, bold statements and promises and they can't deliver, right? So yeah, thank you so much. And I believe that is the reason, that is your secret superpower for staying in business for so many years, because you always deliver and people just come back to you, because, so thank you so much again for coming. Is there anything you want to share? Perhaps I didn't ask you or didn't let you.
I mean, no. I mean, this has been very insightful. It's something that doesn't really get talked a lot about. We kind of meet other people and other people in the business, the incorporation of AI and how it can be helpful. It's something that we're glad to talk to people about. They can come and visit us on our website. It's www.catdi.com, and that's CATDI.com. So that's about it. It's been great to chat with you, and thanks again. And look forward to the next one. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for coming and sharing so generously with me and my listeners today. Yes, I will leave all your links. I mean, I think the website link, not all your links, your website link in the channel below. So guys, go and check it out. If you have any question, you can leave a comment below and we'll get back to you. And also remember to hit the subscribe button. Thanks for listening and watching us today. And until next time, keep showing up. Success doesn't show up for you until you show up and pursue your own success. Bye.
Thanks again. Thank you.